A very pleasant good afternoon and good evening to one and all. On behalf of MOSIP and IIIT-B, it gives me immense pleasure to extend to you, the audience seated here, as well as our audience virtually connected with us, a very warm welcome to MOSIP's Open Source Day. I am Resham Chugani, Product Owner at MOSIP, and I'll be your host for this evening. So, while we started off our journey back in 2018, this day, the 14th of February, marked a significant milestone for us in 2020. Yes, we launched MOSIP 1.0 on this very day. Thereon, it has been a profound learning experience with many of our collaborators, experts, and organizations around the world. From then to now, it has been a significant journey for us, and we are more than thrilled to showcase what we've achieved and what lies ahead during our event today. Before we move forward and witness the event unfold with a lot of exciting technology talks and announcements, I would like to once again thank each and every one of you for being here with us today. So let's get started. To begin with, I would like to request our respected professor, Professor Debabrata, Chairperson, Executive Committee at MOSIP, and Director IIIT-B, to kindly come over to deliver the welcome address and flag off our event.
Thank you, Resham, for the kind introduction. And good evening, good morning, good afternoon to all of you across the globe. Because many people must be in the good morning from the US, they're on the online, and some from the Europe, and some from the India, and some from the Philippines. So watching this event from here at Bangalore. And welcome all of you to the MOSIP Open Source Day. My regards to Professor Rajagopalan, President MOSIP, and Mr. Sanjay Jain, Chair of Technology Committee of MOSIP, for bringing us to this stage of this activity. I also want to thank Mr. Ramesh and Mr. Arun, Mr. Shashi, Mr. Puneet, and the team MOSIP, and all our invitees and esteemed guests and dignitaries on the online and off the dais. Let me be very frank and open. One of the achievements of the MOSIP in my starting of the speech is that in this open source world, MOSIP has been the incredible and journey along with the biggest open source contribution from India and adopted in 10 countries by this year. Only 4+ years we have achieved this. This achievement, when I was going through the various previous discussions and also the various communications, I found that in 2024, now it is 2023, in 2024, in 2018 was, as he was talking about when we started in August, we thought that in 2024 we will have 5 countries. But now, in 2023, we have 10 more countries in the pipeline for this digital identity from MOSIP. Please join me to give a big hand of applause to the MOSIP team for achieving this milestone. So this idea of digital identity, which we have thought as a MOSIP, modular open source identity platform, and which has been successfully getting deployed in countries, will open up another huge possibilities, and also a big project which we are looking forward in this open source world called Global Digital Public Infrastructure, which we have been talking in this second bullet. We can find that this digital identity will work like a rail to come up with these new applications as a digital public infrastructure to help the citizens in the world and also the ecosystem. I am proud to say IIIT Bangalore has been highly supportive of this open source work of MOSIP, which might have been challenges due to the versatile requirements from different quarters. We will build and expand on this gain and offer to the world useful research and meaningful development for citizen and ecosystem by this open source of MOSIP. I want to thank in this research and development along with you some of my esteemed colleagues like Professor R. Chandrasekhar, Professor Thangaraju, Professor Vivek, and some professor from CMU and also Turing University from UK, who has been working closely in the different aspects of the technology challenges and the research to come out with the new ideas and solutions. I wish all of you a wonderful evening here and enjoy the program by different presentations and discussions. And in future, I look forward to work with all of you to make this MOSIP and also DPI a sustainable technology to going forward. I thank you again for coming to this event and participating in MOSIP Open Source Day. And I want to invite my esteemed colleague and also the president of MOSIP, Professor Rajagopalan, to share his views and words on this project and also the plans in future. Thank you all, and over to Professor Rajagopalan.
Thank you, Professor Das. Friends, colleagues, well-wishers, and followers of MOSIP, wherever you are. It's indeed an important day in the journey of MOSIP, not merely because that we released the version 1.0 in 2020, February 14. It's not just to mark the launch of the version 1. It's an important day for many other happenings that is happening. One is that the confidence of the countries in the platform MOSIP is increasing. The trust, it's always said that trust is to be earned. It's never asked for. But the trust that we have seen from countries from Philippines in the Pacific Ocean to the coast of Morocco and now Bahamas and Latin America shows that there is because of the contribution of all of you in a very open and sustained way, that we have got a model of creating the digital public infrastructure for any countries in the world. For the first time, an open source platform has been used to provide identity to close to 80 million of people. The largest identity platform, you could say that Aadhaar is there, and Aadhaar has provided for 1.3 billion people. But the first largest open source implementation in the world in a public service is that of MOSIP. And I must thank all of you for that. And the second question is, why do people trust us? If you really look at this platform milestone, and donors have trusted us, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, NORAD, Tata Trust, Pratiksha Trust, Media, so many of them. Why is there is a trust? Why are there countries who have not seen us, who have not heard about us, are willing to sign up with us? We just signed up a MOU for a pilot project with Niger a couple of days ago. Bahamas is in conversation. Uganda is in conversation. Number of people are in conversation. Why is that trust is there? Because if you really go back 20, 25 years, the open source itself was under some cloud, isn't it? People would say open source won't work at scale. It's all right for small university project, but show me where open source has worked at scale. But subsequent to that, open source has been used in many, many platforms and many commercial offerings, and you would find that even large scale projects are built with components from open source. Despite that evidence, despite that proof, governments were very wary. Because governments have two pulls. One pull is a short-term pull because the decision maker in the government, the politician or the bureaucrat, has got a what I would call as a short shelf life. They are in their position. If you take India as an example, a bureaucrat serves in a position for a maximum of 18 months. And the politician has to face elections or something repeatedly. And so one is that pull which says, I want to invest only in this which will survive for a long time and I should not be blamed. So they would like to play safe, and for a large number of years the open source was considered to be unsafe for government projects. Very few governments in the world adopted open source as for population scale systems. There were experiments all over, people were using here and there, but population scale system was not there. And MOSIP, thanks to all of you here and thanks to all our well-wishers all over the world, has broken that myth that it is possible for an open source platform with, Shashi, correct me if I am wrong, 1.4 million lines of code can be sustained, maintained, and delivered to the same standard as any other software product or platform. And I must place on my record my deepest gratitude to each one of you for this to have happened. Secondly, countries have also realized that open source does two things to that country. One thing is, of course, they are getting a platform at a price which is lower than what they would have otherwise spent without vendor lock-in, etc. But open source platform adoption at population scale also creates empowerment of that country, because there are people who look at the code, there are people who implement it, people who customize it, people who will add on applications on top of it. There will be a startup ecosystem, etc. And in MOSIP, we are doing that actively with all your help. We are trying to promote the MOSIP Experience Center everywhere. So this is not merely a journey to deliver a solution, but also a journey by which we are empowering countries so that in future, maybe 10 years down the line, we would come to a place where the countries might say, I can design my own systems, I don't need IIIT-Bangalore. That would be the success of this project. The success of this project is that there is large number of clones of IIIT-Bangalore at all over the world, and they are able to create their own systems. So that's what we are moving to, working towards. In fact, already we are talking in terms of what next. Countries are asking, you have given us an excellent ID platform, we understand, we have implemented, 80 million people are on this. How do we use this ID? So if you really look at this map, you are talking in terms of all over the, currently we are not having countries in the Latin America, but next February 14 when we meet again, there will be a few countries on the Latin American side also. And so what we have done in the thing, because of the MOSIP, countries have been empowered. And we are guiding them, and we are providing all the support that is required. So countries are bold enough to ask us. We are not like this platform is not like a black box where a vendor comes and delivers a black box and you don't know what is inside and you can't ask further questions because every question is a change control note and every question is additional scope of work and you have to make some payment. So you are scared. If I ask him something, will he immediately give me a CCN and ask me for a few dollars more? So that's how it is going on. But here we are open and we are supporting countries in all respects. And because of that, countries are coming and asking, what next? How do we use it? We have this, for example, Puneet is here. He has been working with OpenG2P, which is another platform on government to person, which will ride on top of MOSIP and deliver government services, including payment services to the people. And already there are a few countries which are interested in that. Philippines has been talking to us for some time. The social protection agenda of the world is looking for similar solutions. We did some work, demonstrated an approach when there was crisis in Ukraine last year, and they wanted some quick approach to be showcased. For the UNDP, we showcased one approach saying this is how you could handle that problem. And similar requests are coming from all over to say, yes, we now have identity. How do we use it to deliver government services? So I think the MOSIP, this start of MOSIP in February 14, 2020 with 1.0 is just the start of a whole new movement, a movement by which governments and people themselves design their own digital infrastructure. And that's what Director was mentioning, that we will now help countries to go on the path of the digital infrastructure. As I was telling you, we are close to about 80 million registrations as of now, and that's how we are into this game. And how is it possible? I said in the beginning, governments have very short-term focus because of the politicians and bureaucrats will always look at saying, how do I implement it? How do I maintain it? So how do I maintain it? You are an university, tomorrow something else may interest you, counter to ChatGPT because students are using it in large number. What do we do, etc. will engage our attention and not MOSIP, identity, DPI and all that. So how do we trust you, or how do we? So we have created this huge ecosystem, not only the biometric devices providers, but also system integrators and others who could say, yeah, I understand MOSIP very well. I understand the version 1.2 LTS. No problem. If the university is busy with something else, I would be able to do this. And that's the advantage of having such a large ecosystem. And I must thank here my colleague Sanjay, who is not present today. I hope he is watching this, and for creating this kind of enormous ecosystem. And if you really look at other open source projects, except for long-standing OS project like Linux and maybe Postgre, we do not have in public domain in open source technology for use of the society and the government, we do not have such a large ecosystem. There are projects, there are many projects, and many projects are being implemented, but to create such a large ecosystem is a significant achievement of MOSIP, and I must thank all of you who have patiently worked with the device manufacturers, and I want to thank the device manufacturers also, because they come with so much new ideas. I have seen so many new ideas have come because of the device manufacturer working with us and proposing, why can't we do like this? Whether it is a tablet registration system, whether it is printing of cards, various kinds of cards. If any one of you go to the MOSIP Experience Center, you will find all kinds of cards that can be printed there. There are cards which if you photocopy, it won't come. There will be nothing there in the photocopy. Those kinds of cards. So it is difficult to duplicate those cards. People have done, I have seen people who have got a kind of a fabric, kind of a solar photovoltaic so that the registration can go unhindered even in remotest area. There are so many things, and these all have been possible only because like countries trusting us, the device manufacturers and SIs also trust us. And that trust is very important, that credibility is very important, and I must thank all of you for that creating in short span of 5 years. 2018 we started in sometime in March. Some of you who worked on the scoping project are still around, I could see them 5 years down the line. But in short span of 5 years, we have won the trust of the governments, we have won the trust of multilateral agencies, donors, and we have won the trust of the commercial ecosystem. And all this would not have been possible without very silent but solid support of the institute with Chairman Kris Gopalakrishna and the governing body and the director, and also by dedicated work by a large number of people. I remember at the peak of writing that 1.0 in February 2020, just before that, we had about 130 odd code developers engaged in this project. I had gone to Global Village and talked to them on one morning there, and there were about 120 code developers at that time. So we have really benefited from so many individuals, so many well-wishers, our advisory group, international advisory group, and governments, universities across the Philippines University actually introduced a course as elective on the digital identity system. So we have benefited a lot, and this benefit was possible only because we delivered what we said we will deliver. Thank you all for being with us, and I hope that you enjoy this evening. There is going to be some announcements of new features, etc. I now invite Sanjay Jain to speak to you. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here to commemorate the day we took MOSIP and put it into open source and released version 1.0. And when we started the journey, we called it the modular open source ID platform because our thought was that every country is at a very different stage in terms of their evolution. Their needs are going to be different. So what we really need is a sort of a jigsaw puzzle kind of a thing to say, here are the components that you could take and customize them to fit what your country needs. And that approach, I think, has proved to be the right one to take because that allows all these diverse countries who have very diverse requirements to come together with our system and build an ID system that works for them. And of course, as we went on this journey, we kept working with countries, we kept understanding what's happening with tech and how it's evolving. And today you will hear many people talk about different parts of what we have done. But then over the time, I think we ended up adding what I would actually consider more modules. So when we say MOSIP, we talk of identity issuance and verification. But that's really just the core platform that in itself includes a pre-registration, a registration, a processing, a biometrics component, the whole print, post, all of those features all built as modules. But what's also happened is that being a digital first ID, you now start to think about how you would use that in different ways. And that typically then ends up becoming a construct like a wallet, and which is what we've put together again, is a way by which you could issue an identity document in a standard form that could be held in a wallet which holds many other similar credentials, allows you to authenticate yourself and then interoperate with other applications. So it becomes very versatile and very useful in completely different contexts that we cannot imagine. And that's something which we are releasing as a module called NG, and I think today we're going to talk a little more about NG as well. In addition to that, you're going to hear from Nat Sakimura next as well, and he's part of the OpenID Connect, and that our collaboration there is resulting in the creation of an open wallet foundation, which will create an open version of a wallet in which will have many, many different kinds of documents that come together. And then once you have that, then the uses of ID from a personal perspective include digital signatures, verifying documents, doing things, and e-Signet is again the module that will help us do that, which will allow an ID credential which is used in a standard form held in a wallet to be used for verification, for consented data sharing, and so on. And that's something which I think will allow users of ID. And these components will work independent of the issuing platform. So even if you don't have MOSIP as your issuing platform, you could still use these as long as you adhere to standards. And that together, I think, comprises broadly what we call the MOSIP ecosystem. And then we finally will have, and we already have, the OpenG2P, and Puneet's going to talk about it, where again, within the government context, we have found in India, our use of ID was very different. It was the basis for a lot of subsidy distribution, government-to-person payments, and so on. And that has become a very felt need around the world by many countries looking at it and saying, I wish we could do that. And OpenG2P is a program that actually allows them to do it. And it's a complex enough ecosystem to deserve a project of its own. And it will has started out here in the team, and I think you're going to see that also come together in a way that's going to transform governance around the world. Can I have the next slide, please? Yeah. And we've done this over the last few years with a very principle-driven approach where the first thing we did was really keep in mind our user, our target users, not the government, but the individual whose ID it is. Our focus around the entire system is around inclusion, bringing everybody into formal systems, giving them access, and enabling privacy while doing that. And this is done by making people have control on their own data, and they're able to use it for their benefit. I'm not going to read through all of these. I'm going to, the manageable part is really for governments to figure out, to help them manage these systems. But the standards based, this is really the part that I was highlighting, was when you have all of these different pieces, if they're to communicate with each other and be replaceable with perhaps non-open source versions, non-open source products, then you have to communicate via standards. So the ID issuance and credential that is issued has to be in a standard format so that it can then communicate to the wallet. So both the data structure has to be standard, but the way it is generated and distributed also has to be standard. And then once a wallet is used, it is going to enable everything from opening a hotel room to unlocking an electric car and so on, and also prove your ID. And again, the way that the wallet communicates with the rest of the world has to be standards based. So this is sort of where we are going, is to say that the whole world is moving in a particular direction. Identity is a key part of almost everything you do. But the way to enable all of this is to build these interfaces and standards so that these different components can talk together and deliver value to the user. And that's something which we've been focused on. We've been trying to do this as best as we can in partnership with all of the people around the world. You know, we saw a list of our partners on the biometric devices and the systems integrator ecosystems. But then we've also started the work with the Open Wallet Foundation, for example, which will help us go further in that journey. And then finally, our belief is that it has to be open source. People should be able to look at the code, learn from it, trust it, modify it to make it as per their needs, contribute back so that the rest of the world can evolve. And it has to be a viable alternative to the closed source systems that will exist alongside it. And so that's something which we have again focused on as a key principle for what we do and what we build. And that's something which we have done. And so the team, as you will hear again today, we focus on building these platforms for digital trust. We work on the standards pieces as well. We have contributed towards the creation of certain standards. We are still in the process of doing that. It's a very long-term effort, and we will be continuing to work on that. Reference designs, of course. And then once you do all of that, we still need a lot of research on how ID systems are being used around the world, how people are using them. And that's something, again, we continue to support. Again, the benefit of being housed at an education institution is that this becomes a core part of the mission. And that's something which we are very proud to do. And so with that, I'm going to ask you to continue to enjoy the rest of the presentations. And as I leave you, I want to introduce my next speaker. Nat Sakimura is going to be joining us. And Nat is a renowned expert in the fields of identity and privacy. He's the chair of the OpenID Foundation. He's a chair of My Data Japan as well. He has authored several widely used standards, including OpenID Connect, and works with communities around the world on issues of identity, privacy, and public policy. He's a digital special advisor to the Japanese Fair Trade Commission and serves as a member of various governmental committees in Japan. He's also a member of the Internet Technical Advisory Committee. At present, he heads a Japanese national body to ISO PC 317, Consumer Protection, that standardizes identity management and privacy technologies. And he's a founding board member of the Kantara project. Nat is also, very much aware of, he spent a lot of his, part of his life in Kenya, and he understands a lot of the way the third world works and the needs of the development that are there. And he's been a wonderful person to work with, and I welcome him to the stage and give us our keynote address today.
Thank you very much for inviting me today. I'm very honored to be a part of this conference, and I apologize for not being able to attend in person. But if there is going to be another occasion, I shall certainly be. OpenID Foundation is a US non-profit global standards organization that creates standards for digital identity and API protection. We have been creating many specifications. Some are general in nature. Some are more used in verticals like the financial industry. Sometimes we do it completely on our own, and sometimes when we think that's useful in a wider community than related to OpenID, then we bring them to an appropriate forum, such as IETF, to get them standardized. JWT, JWS, JWE, Auth MTLS are some of the examples in the latter category. Among the standards we set, today I would like to focus on two sets of specifications: OpenID Connect and OpenID for VC. OpenID Connect is a selective claims disclosure mechanism based on the distributed claims provider model. Attributes asserted by an issuer. Now, issuer can be yourself, then National Register probably is the authoritative source. If it were about employment record, then your employer probably is. It's very popular right now. Over 3 billion people uses it, including many governments. It is dynamic. By assuring that everything is provided dynamically, it solved what we state as 80% of online use cases with 20% of the effort. That, in turn means that we only solved fully online cases, and I will get to this limitation later. There are three properties that we took special care of when designing the OpenID Connect: security properties, privacy properties, and consumer protections. For security properties, we took particular care that simple cases can be achieved by simple means, while the highest security is attainable also. It's built on the experience of XML and XML digital signature, so that no canonicalization and no XPath selection-like thing is being done. They caused a lot of interoperability and security problems. Also, all messages can be authenticated. As a result, the most secure profile is formally verified to be secure against extremely powerful adversaries under the web attacker model. For privacy properties, we created a standard to meet ISO IEC 29100 privacy principles. It's got facilities like policy URL, selective disclosure is supported, up to the very, very granular atomic claims. Pairwise pseudonymous identifiers and choice of unlinkability models is built in. For consumer protection properties, we made it possible for the authorization server to require relying parties to register policy URL, which is the URL for privacy policies. It's really difficult for consumers to keep track of for what kind of purposes and processing promises that they have agreed to. With this kind of property, with this kind of facility, consumers can always go to their identity provider to find out what they have actually previously agreed to and revert their consent as they need to be. Also, it's primarily a third-party asserted model. That means that IDP, identity providers, and claims issuer are actually responsible towards the consumers. So this kind of shared responsibility model is being considered as the backdrop of the entire protocol. Now, as I have said before, it left out several topics for the future study. One of the main things is offline use cases. As it is fully dynamic, it does not work if any party, that is issuer or user or relying party, being offline. Offline use cases are larger than most people imagine. Offline means network unreachable. That includes the cases like enterprise identity server, which is behind the firewall so that it cannot be reached from the sites. And if we dig deeper into it, selective disclosure with the issuer offline case actually has been a big topic that we left out. In OpenID Connect, claims and tokens are minted dynamically. That means they are not going to work in the offline use cases. Also, pairwise pseudonymity with the issuer offline becomes a big problem. That's why we are now addressing these with OpenID for VC and VP. VC stands for verifiable credentials, and VP stands for verifiable presentations. This diagram may look quite similar to the OpenID Connect one that I have shown. It is, but there are subtle differences. First of all, we use different terminology. OpenID provider is now called holder or wallets, and relying party is called verifiers, and claims provider is called issuers. It's a wallet-mediated model, and keys that authenticate the users are generated in the wallet. The wallets can receive credentials through a protocol called OpenID for VC from issuers on the left-hand side, and store them for the later day use. That allows issuers to become offline at the time of the credential usage. It is also credential types agnostic. It can deal with MDL, mobile driver's license, W3C verifiable credential, JWT, X509, and so on and so forth. And they can be transformed and presented using OpenID for VP, which takes care of selective disclosure. This is all good, but still we have to give considerations in trust, consumer protection, and equity as well. I'm categorizing trust in this context in 3 buckets: issuer trust, wallet trust, and verifier trust. With issuer trust, I mean, how do we trust the issuers? The data being signed by the issuer does not translate to the trust by the relying parties or verifiers. We have to address the question on how a relying party can find if the issuer can be trusted. Wallet trust asks, how do we trust the wallets? How do we as a consumer trust the wallets? The mere fact that wallets are installed on our phones does not mean that we have control over the data it stores. It can be insecure, or the wallet provider or library provider may have malicious intentions. We do have prior experience with something like that. Then verifier trust means, how do we trust the verifiers? That is, how can we be sure that verifiers adhere to the purpose and the processing rules that they promise in their privacy policies? These leads to the issues of consumer protection. User control and decentralization are often used as an excuse by the providers to escape from their consumer protection duties. This is dangerous. Consumer control is good, participation is good, but pushing the responsibility to the consumer is not good. There's a great deal of information asymmetry and asymmetry in the ability to process information. Issuers and wallet provider must protect the users. Finally, I'd like to address equity and its impacts on communities. We have to strive to accommodate the needs of various communities. Here, by communities, I mean a set of people or group of people sharing certain characteristics or interests. Forcing one way of conducting business often puts some communities in a disadvantageous position. For example, forcing one mode of biometrics would put certain populations unable to access the service. Obviously, being able to install a wallet on a smartphone does not solve the problem of equity by itself. It doesn't work for people who don't have a smartphone to start with, and the list goes on. So we have to take particular care of this equity issue. We at OpenID Foundation are considering all of these factors, and the value of collaboration with MOSIP cannot be overstated. We are looking forward to create the future together. Thank you very much.
Talking about solutions, all the work that MOSIP has done and continues to do is truly an outcome of the various contributions from our collaborators, partners, contributors, organizations, and countries around the world. To elaborate more on this aspect of embracing the community, I request Ramesh Narayanan, CTO at MOSIP, to kindly come over and say a few words.
Good evening to those of you who are here, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening to the rest of the people who are online. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Nat, for a very insightful discussion on standards. Thank you for keeping it technical, right? It showcases the amount of effort, significant effort that's been put in by loads of researchers across the globe. Nat distilled it and delivered it in 10 minutes for all of us to understand. And he also touched upon the social issues and the importance of ensuring that the consumer is protected and equity is handled. Right? We at MOSIP know that one solution, one size of solution doesn't fit everybody. So we are always working on a bouquet. But we also, as Sanjay talked about earlier, look at how there can be choices. That's why we have gone the standards way of doing this. And standards are very important at the core of what we do. But while we have been doing all that, 3 years ago, we came, talked about, opened up to the world, talked about MOSIP, and then we had many objectives as part of that, right? We said, we have done this, we have created a platform, here's a version 1.0, and then we said we are also going to work on many things. Right? So what have we actually achieved in this? Being an open source project, we wanted to make sure that whatever we are doing, this is with the community, their help. So we have created multiple touch points for the community. So we have launched our community site. And I think in the first few weeks, it was a dismal few visits to it, and most probably from the internal MOSIP team. But now we have a few thousand visits happening on a regular basis. And we hope that this will pick up. And I think it picking up is more on the team starting to share more and more details as part of the community engagement that we have. We are working towards being more transparent, and we'll start sharing more. And we hope that it becomes a very strong channel for engaging with MOSIP. But apart from the online channel, we also have set up a digital experience center that Professor was alluding to earlier. And we have had at least one visit every week since we have started. And this is picking up. And in order to accommodate this, we are going to have more digital experience centers in CMU Africa, in Philippines, and hopefully more places. Right? So this is another channel where we hope to keep in touch with the community. But apart from keeping in touch with community, we also work with the open source community by collaborating with them, by building integrations. So you will hear about integrations with OpenCRVS, OpenG2P, and more. And I have colleagues here from some of the digital public infrastructure and open source solutions built in India. And we are in active conversations, and maybe some of these will also be available. Right? What is this for? This is to ensure that we can have ready-made solutions out there for everyone to use. Apart from these open source collaborations, we also have got plenty of love from the ecosystem. You can see that our marketplace already has 20 organizations listed. And they are certified, they have gone through the validation process, and they span 5 continents, right? So we are happy to have people from Latin America, Central America, Asia, Africa, and Europe collaborating with us. And we are just saying that all this love that we have received is something that makes us feel very humble, because we didn't expect this. We expected a lot of resistance, we expected challenge, but what we have received in turn is collaboration, joint passion for achieving what we have set out to. And we are where we are thanks to all these collaborators, the industry experts who have been part of our working groups, the universities we have worked with, our partners who have been early adopters. They took a chance. There was no revenue in the pipeline, no business opportunity to justify anything, but they took a chance on this because they saw what's possible. Thank you for all of that. Right? It has been a very humbling experience for me for the kind of support that we have received. With all this and various direct contributions, like we have had people deputed to us, we have code contributions from others, and we have had people building solutions on top. So there are some exciting private sector initiatives also based on what we are doing. And more universities, like the Chambogo University in Uganda recently, actually put up 20 people who have been working on MOSIP. Like these are all things that come from the left field. We don't even expect what's happening, why it is happening. But we are amazed with the kind of tenacity, the interest, and support that the world has shown in being behind us and getting us where we are. Thank you very much. From the bottom of our hearts. We will move on to the main segment of the event. We heard Nat talking about OpenID. We will see how we have taken OpenID and put it to work. In 2020, we talked about MOSIP themes. We talked about authentication 2.0, mobility, privacy, rapid implementation, service delivery. We have made strides on all these fronts. And over the next half an hour to 45 minutes, you are going to hear about all these strides and what we have achieved. To start off, I would like to welcome Rounak, who is one of our key product owners, to talk about e-Signet. e-Signet lies at the cusp of, please join me, Rounak. e-Signet lies at the cusp of authentication and privacy. Like how we wanted to bring consent into it and put more control in the user's hand, right? OpenID Connect allowed us to do that very effectively, and we have built e-Signet using that. I'll hand it over to Rounak. You will see many faces today, the people who actually are behind everything and make all this magic happen. Over to Rounak. Thank you, Rounak.
Thank you, Ramesh. Good evening, everyone, and a warm welcome to all. In our 4 years journey at MOSIP, we learned a lot from our implementations, partners, ecosystems, and community. These learnings have helped us to understand the importance of having a simple, easy to use, and diversified solution. e-Signet is one such solution that we have built from our learnings. It aims to simplify online authentication with the well-known OpenID Connect specification that Nat just spoke about. Verification is one of the key functionalities for any ID system, and providing a just, fair, and seamless access to authentication is very important and essential for any ID system. e-Signet aims to do so by providing a ready-to-integrate solution for any ID system, not just MOSIP. Any existing trusted ID system can simply write a small authentication wrapper today and deploy their own version of e-Signet. Whereas relying parties who want to use e-Signet can simply add a small button stating sign in with national ID or signing with ID and integrate with the OIDC protocols or endpoints exposed by the e-Signet solution. E-Signet not only provides an elegant way to perform different types of passwordless authentication, but also interfaces with the IEEE P3167 secure biometric standard to connect to secure biometric devices and perform biometric authentication. It also enables residents to provide consent before sharing any eKYC data to any relying party. These were some of the features of e-Signet. With this, let's play the launch video for e-Signet. Team, can we play the video?
Access to every basic right and service today requires a person to be able to verify their identity. Residents often have to be physically present for this process and need to remember multiple passwords for different purposes. At the same time, service providers and governments need to offer trustworthy channels for authentication of user IDs. e-Signet offers a solution to these problems by connecting citizens' ID directly to service providers. e-Signet can be integrated with any trusted form of identity that can authenticate a resident and eliminates their need to remember several passwords. Using e-Signet is simple. On a service provider's portal that requires verification of identity, users can click on the option that allows them to log in through e-Signet. On providing their unique ID number, users will then be asked to choose a method of authentication: OTP, general purpose biometric devices, or a PIN. Authentication can also be done with any compatible digital wallet like Inji. e-Signet then asks the resident for explicit consent to share required data with the service provider. eKYC data is shared only if the user has provided consent. The service provider can now authenticate a user's identity against data stored on any identity system. e-Signet works with any trustworthy ID. It allows users to securely confirm their identities in multiple apps or websites without creating new profiles and passwords. Because e-Signet does not share any data with service providers without the resident's explicit consent, and because all activities happen on the e-Signet website, other parties do not get direct access to the user's ID or biometric data. e-Signet also helps service providers fulfill their KYC needs in a time and cost-effective way. The module uses global standards of OpenID Connect and OAuth 2.0 and SBI compliance specifications. This means that e-Signet can be easily integrated into any platform and with any biometric device without the need to build new features. With e-Signet, residents have a secure and integrated way to access multiple services without the hassle of endless profiles and passwords. Find more information on how to download and install e-Signet at docs.esignet.io or reach out to the MOSIP team through community.mosip.io to send us your comments and queries.
Dear partners, you can use our sandbox environments like Collab and Synergy to integrate with MOSIP using e-Signet. For the consumption of e-Signet, we have been collaborating with multiple DPGs and initiatives like DCI and GovStack. We have many of the DPGs here with us today, like OpenG2P. I would like to call upon Puneet Joshi, the CTO at OpenG2P, to come and talk about the integration of OpenG2P with MOSIP and e-Signet. Thank you, everyone.
Hello. Hello, everyone. Happy to see you all here, and also all those who have joined us on the live stream. Fantastic moment here for this project. But what I'm going to talk about today is a very important use case of MOSIP, which is very impactful, and that is related to delivering social benefits from government to person. Now, governments across the world, you're aware that there are many governments run many schemes and programs for social protection. If you read any of the UNDP or World Bank reports on this, it's quite clear that, and it's very definite, that there is a need for streamlining this entire process of social benefit delivery using technology. And that's needed for many reasons. One is just the efficiency of delivery, then reduction of frauds. Also, not asking the same information, collecting the same information from the end users again and again. Creating beneficiary lists very quickly, and that's especially important during the emergency relief kind of operations. And above all, being inclusive such that marginalized sections of population or those who don't have access to technology are not left out. So it's interesting, it's tech for non-tech. OpenG2P is an endeavor in this direction. Next slide, please. So OpenG2P is an open source platform. It's available as license, as under the license of MPL 2.0. It offers several modules, or you can call them building blocks, to create an end-to-end solution for a country for social benefit delivery. Just as an example here, there are modules for registration of an applicant. There is enrolling the applicant into programs. There are payments. Then, of course, tracking the status and so on. And there is a self-service portal that OpenG2P offers, and notification. There are a few of the modules that we offer here. It's interesting, for example, in registration, we have integrated with MOSIP here, where we have done away with the physical filling of the forms. Now the OpenG2P offers a digitized form. A registration officer can use a tablet and scan the MOSIP QR code, read the KYC data. The form is auto-filled. The form is submitted to the backend. By the way, this can be done in offline mode and later submitted to the backend. Then on the backend, the enrollment happens where the eligibility criteria for a program can be defined in the system. Complex eligibility criteria can be defined. You can put plugins and so on. So the platform offers this capability. Payments. Now that's a very important part. OpenG2P has a framework to connect to the payment rails of a country. And for example, in our demonstrations, we have connected to Moja Loop, and we trigger a payment from OpenG2P that goes to Moja Loop and shows a bank transfer from a treasury account to an individual account. So payments is the last very important part of delivery. Of course, there is a self-service portal. Here again, we have used MOSIP, where a person can log in into the portal using e-Signet. That's what Rounak was talking about. And so it's inclusive in the sense we are assuming that the ID, a national ID will be issued to all. And so potentially everybody can log in. I mean, log in with Google or log in with Facebook is still limited. But log in with an ID would be really inclusive. In this whole, the platform, we have used all the open source technologies. The platform itself is based on Odoo, which is open source ERP, and then host of other technologies that have come in play. Next slide, please. So where does MOSIP integrate with OpenG2P? These are some of the points where it integrates. One is the registration, as I said. So you could use VC or you could use QR code issued by MOSIP, and that gets, as I said, auto-filled into the form. So offline verification can happen. Deduplication at the back end. This whole problem in social benefit registries of, duplication. It's called double dipping, where the same person enters multiple times into a registry and so on. That is completely avoided by an ID, a unique ID system like MOSIP.
The Digital Convergence Initiative is helping the achievement of the goal of universal social protection as agreed in the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development.
Thank you. And also when receiving a service, you could use MOSIP for verifying whether the person who's receiving is indeed he claims. And as I mentioned, self-service portal, which is login with MOSIP. So these are some of the integration points of MOSIP and OpenG2P. in conclusion, I would like to say that an integration of a national ID, a foundational ID like MOSIP, and into systems like OpenG2P, I think makes this system very, very powerful and effective for social benefit delivery, definitely. Thank you.
Check, can you hear me? All right. All right, sorry about the interruption, some technical issues. All right. So thank you, Puneet. That was a great showcase of how OpenG2P works with MOSIP. Talking about working with MOSIP, interoperability is definitely the way forward, which helps MOSIP develop as a building block. On that note, let's take a look at how MOSIP works seamlessly with some more solutions like Digital Convergence Initiative, and it takes the interoperability aspect forward. Let's hear more on this from our partners at DCI, from Anita Mittal, Senior Advisor at GIZ, who leads the DCI initiative, Veronica Watsk, Social Protection Policy Specialist and a member of DCI's steering group, and Melis Gwen from World Bank, Global Lead for Social Protection Delivery Systems, and a member of DCI's steering group. Can we have the video, please?
The Digital Convergence Initiative is helping the achievement of the goal of universal social protection as agreed in the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. It addresses the challenge of fragmentation and lack of interoperability of social protection systems. Standards are indispensable when building interoperable systems. Hence, the DCI is working on the development and global consensus building on technical standards and guidelines for information systems in the social protection sector. GIZ, the ILO, and the World Bank are steering the initiative in close collaboration to achieve this vision. In our Talking Interoperability webinar series, we learn how countries implement integrated and interoperable social protection systems. We invite you to our next webinar featuring Uzbekistan. The Interoperability in Action workshops demonstrate the interoperability of different systems for social protection program delivery. The previous two workshops have focused on the interoperability of social protection systems with CRVS and payment systems, respectively. Our next workshop in February will demonstrate the interoperability of the social protection system with the ID system. Over the course of the last few months, the DCI and MOSIP have been working together to set this up in the DCI sandbox. To learn more about the DCI and to stay tuned for future events on other components, like interoperability with pharma or disability registries, we welcome you on our social media networks.
Thank you, Anita, Veronica, Melis, and the DCI team. That truly does bring out the flavors of interoperability. Moving on, in the next segment, we would be witnessing how MOSIP integrates with the civil registration system to ensure that every child at birth is automatically issued a digital identity through our seamless integration. Let's hear more on this and many other use cases from Edward Duffus, Director of Product Strategy and Sustainability, OpenCRVS. Can we have the video, please?
Hi, my name is Edward Duffus and I lead on product strategy and sustainability at OpenCRVS. I'm joining you on MOSIP Open Source Day to explain to you how OpenCRVS and MOSIP are working together to create a digital public infrastructure for foundational identity and how that in turn can support effective government service delivery. So what is OpenCRVS exactly? Well, it's an open source digital solution for civil registration. So that's the registration of births, deaths, marriages and divorce, and it's been specifically designed for low resource settings. What we're trying to do at OpenCRVS is create a new gold standard for digital civil registration all around the world. It's open source, like MOSIP, which means no license fees or ties to specific software vendors. It's what we call human-centered, so it's been designed by and for CRVS users around the world. So it really means it's a simple solution to use, and it works in all those difficult locations around the world where there's no connectivity. It works offline in all circumstances to really reflect the challenges of civil registration that are encountered around the world. And of course, because the civil registration system is full of personally identifiable information, it's safe and secure to use. It's built to the highest security standards, keeping people's data safe. So let's have a look at how OpenCRVS and MOSIP are working together in the foundational identity ecosystem. So in the diagram, you can see a number of different systems working together, and it's the interoperability between them that allows them to share data and talk to one another. So OpenCRVS, top and in the center, receives notifications of births and deaths from the health system. And in turn, it's sharing statistical information about life events with the National Statistics Office. But as a civil registration system, it's creating the sole source of legal and trusted vital events data for government service delivery. So this is the formal recognition of births and deaths which have taken place within the country. That data is also shared with MOSIP, and MOSIP, on registration of birth, can create a unique identification number. Now, working together with or without a national population registry, which you can see in the middle, the government service delivery functions you can see at the bottom, which are functional registries, like social safety nets, voter registration, healthcare providers and education, for example. These are all functions which are going to rely on trusted source of life event data such as births and deaths and the unique identification which is provided for by MOSIP. So we've been working with MOSIP for some time now to be able to build out certain integration use cases, in particular related to birth and death registration. So over the next few slides, I'm just going to explain how that works. So on registration of a birth within OpenCRVS, MOSIP is automatically informed via a webhook, and it generates an application ID that can later be used to create a national ID number and a card. The MOSIP application ID and unique person token is then returned to OpenCRVS and stored in the child's birth record. When the civil registrar prints the birth certificate, the MOSIP application ID is then printed out onto the certificate if it's required. We are working really hard with MOSIP to build out other integration use cases as well, and many of this will be available very shortly. Already planned for the end of May in 2023, we have 2 new use cases coming. The first is related to the OpenCRVS birth and death declaration process. So within that process, MOSIP will be authenticating the identity of the informants, for example, the parents, and pre-populating the birth declaration form. This is going to massively increase the quality of data within the birth declaration. The second one is where OpenCRVS revokes, for example, an erroneous or fraudulent birth or death registration. MOSIP, we already handled that. Planned for the end of September 2023, we have 4 more use cases. The first is the same as the MOSIP authentication use case I mentioned before, but that will now be available in an offline mode. Remember, OpenCRVS is designed for use in low resource settings, and often civil registration is taking place in remote areas where there's no connectivity. So we need to think about offline first. The second use case relates to OpenCRVS birth and death declaration process again. And through integration with MOSIP, we'll be able to create a verifiable credential within a mobile wallet. The third is when OpenCRVS corrects or updates a birth or death record. MOSIP will be able to handle that. And fourth, we'll be able to search for records in OpenCRVS by national ID. So if you'd like to know more about OpenCRVS and find out how it can support your digital civil registration needs, do please get in touch. Likewise, if you'd like more information about how OpenCRVS is working together with MOSIP to support integration use cases for foundational identity and effective government service delivery, there's plenty of information on our documentation website. You can email us at team@opencrvs.org. Our website is opencrvs.org, and our documentation website describes how to get the best out of OpenCRVS, how to install it, configure it, make sure it works together with MOSIP. That's at documentation.opencrvs.org. Thank you very much.
We would like to talk about is GovStack, which works on the eGov architecture, where ID sits in the middle of it all. We at MOSIP are ensuring that through our interactions with GovStack, we are creating a great way of defining interoperability. Let's hear more on this from Jean Dubois, Digital Advisor at ID30, Identity Block Lead at GovStack, and the Technical Advisor for MOSIP's rollout in Togo. Can we have the video, please?
Hi everyone, I'm Jean Dubois, the Identity Building Block Working Group Lead at GovStack. Today, I want to take a minute to express my gratitude and highlight the important role that MOSIP teams play in our initiative. For those who don't know, GovStack reuses worldwide best practices to define specification APIs of building blocks for building government digital stacks. Driven and supported by ITU, GIZ, DIAL, and other relevant organizations, we have a global reach and are working as a community for facilitating and fast-tracking emergence of digital public infrastructure. MOSIP team has been a key player in our efforts, specifically in the definition of building blocks like identity, consent, and e-signature. They bring a wealth of experience from their work in several countries, inspired from what has been done in India, while I bring my long field experience from ID systems around the world, notably Africa and Latin America. Our combined experience creates great synergies, and their input has been invaluable in our brainstorming, reviewing, and debating session. MOSIP also supports our effort in building interoperability, serving as GovStack interface with the OpenID Foundation to leverage OpenID Connect standard. Their attention to privacy preservation and individual rights has been critical in ensuring that our APIs meet the highest standard of security and efficiency. In short, we are lucky to have MOSIP folks on board, and we look forward to continuing our collaboration in the future. Together, we can tackle the challenge of interoperability and help citizens in efficiently interacting with their government. Thank you, MOSIP.
Thank you, Jean. This does highlight the expanse of MOSIP's collaborations. So, what we witnessed so far was how MOSIP is interoperable with solutions like DCI, OpenCRVS, and GovStack, where the key aspect was to ensure interoperability of the various building blocks. However, creating these specs and adopting the right standards is a key focus area which aligns with our approach of being standards-based. Our efforts on standards go way beyond GovStack or DCI, where we have been expanding and working with various groups and various initiatives on OpenID standards, where standards help in investing and investments being sustainable. To know more about it, let's hear it from Kristina Yasuda, identity standards engineer at Microsoft, and with a strong association with OIDF. Can we have the video, please?
Hi, congratulations on MOSIP Open Source Day. It's super exciting. My name is Kristina Yasuda. I work at Microsoft as an identity standards engineer. And I wanted to share with you the work we have been doing with MOSIP team led by Sasi and Ramesh on OpenID for Bluetooth protocol. We have been working actively in OpenID Foundation on a protocol suite called OpenID for Verifiable Credentials. It allows to transport verifiable credentials that are an integral part of decentralized identity systems, transport them over the internet, to issue them into the wallet, and present them from wallet to the verifier. And every time we talk to the government especially or other implementers, they would always ask us, great, it looks awesome, OpenCRVS, but how about offline scenarios? From the inclusion perspective, it is very important that the user can still present a verifiable credential using their wallet even if there is no internet connection, right? So that's how we came together as a MOSIP team, and we've been actively working on a draft called OpenID for Bluetooth, which again allows to send credentials over Bluetooth. And I really hope that we can continue working together and the protocol will become as successful as the main OpenCRVS protocol, and we'll see people around the world enhancing the power of verifiable credentials thanks to our work. Thank you.
That highlights that how being compliant with standards plays a crucial role. However, ensuring inclusivity is also equally important. Speaking of standards and compliance, are you ready to meet the new and refined compliance toolkit of MOSIP? Well, with this solution, our partners can seamlessly test the compliance level of their solution, as well as verify if it complements MOSIP's published specifications, all in a jiffy. To talk more about our refined compliance toolkit, I request Mayura Deshmukh, Technical Architect at MOSIP, to take us through the capabilities of the compliance toolkit.
Thank you, Resham, for inviting me here. Good evening, everyone. We at MOSIP have been working at this exciting new product called Compliance Toolkit, which we released in December 2022. Compliance Toolkit was designed with a goal to make our ecosystem more robust and making the onboarding process a seamless one. Compliance Toolkit, in short CTK, is a browser-based online portal where the partners can log in and check their solutions' compliance with MOSIP standards. This toolkit has a simple user-friendly interface where the partners can run collections of predefined test cases. Next slide. Compliance Toolkit supports a range of specifications and standards, including SBI, BioSDK, ABIS, Android SBI, manual adjudication, and credential sharing for printing. With our December 22 release, we are supporting 75 plus test cases for SDK and 80 plus test cases for SBI. Each test case internally has a set of validations. For example, our SBI test case has validations like schema validation, signature validation, key rotation validation, ISO standards validation, and biometrics quality check validation. When all these validations pass, the test case is considered to have passed. Upon successful completion of all test cases, Compliance Toolkit will also issue a certificate to the partner. For running our SDK or ABIS projects, the MOSIP's partner can use MOSIP's default test data, or they can upload their own test data. We also plan to have an Android app which will facilitate testing with Android SBI. As of now, Compliance Toolkit is available in our sandbox environments like Colab and Synergy, but it can also be independently hosted by the countries using 1201 MOSIP as a base platform and only a few services running like Key Manager, Auth Manager, etc. We are confident that Compliance Toolkit will bring about a significant positive impact for all our partners and larger audience. It will ensure adherence to MOSIP standards, and it will streamline the compliance testing process. Hopefully, it's a good solution for everyone. Thank you all for your attention and time.
Thank you, Mayura. We are quite intrigued, and I'm sure this will interest a lot of our partners. So, while Compliance Toolkit goes a long way in helping both adopters and solution providers to move rapidly, certifications help our adopters as well as the ecosystem to be market ready. And to facilitate this, we have been working on the framework where we have the first draft of the framework available. Let's hear more on this from Ted Dunstone, the CEO and founder of Bixi Lab, who has been collaborating with us on this effort. Can we have the video, please?
Hi, I'm Dr. Ted Dunstone, the CEO and founder of Bixi Lab, a NIST-accredited biometric and digital identity testing laboratory. It's the first of its kind in the Southern Hemisphere. Our laboratory is accredited both by NIST/NVLAP and for FIDO for biometric performance testing and presentation attack detection. We're honoured to be the first laboratory providing certification services with MOSIP. The formal standards for device providers and testing laboratories under the MOSIP Advanced Compliance Program are soon to be finalised. At Bixi Lab, we support the importance of independent assurance for biometric systems to improve and enable security, trust and privacy. We're looking forward to the continued growth of the MOSIP ecosystem, and we're excited to engage with vendors and users to help deliver the benefits of the MOSIP Trusted Identity ecosystem. Please feel free to get in touch with us at info@bixilab.com if you'd like to know more.
That was quite insightful, Ted. Thank you. So while we at MOSIP continue to focus on platform development and standards, we are also equally driven to accentuate our efforts towards research, investigation, and capacity building. We have been collaborating with various entities on this front, one such organization being the Carnegie Mellon University, Africa. We are extremely delighted to have amongst us the CMU Africa team present here with us in person. We extend a very warm welcome to you, Lena and Andrew. I request Andrew Armstrong, Research Associate, Opanzi Network, Scilab Africa, to kindly come over and take us through their journey on how the African team have been able to independently set up MOSIP and integrate it with the DHIS, that's the District Health Information System, in their local context in Rwanda. Andrew?
Thank you, everyone, for that very warm welcome. So I am Andrew, and from the team at Scilab and CMU, I'd like to introduce to you our interoperability project, case study with MOSIP and DHIS2. So first, a little bit about Scilab and the Opanzi network. So Scilab is a privacy and security initiative started in Pittsburgh and spread to the Carnegie Mellon Africa campus and now called Scilab Africa. So what we focus on is, again, security and privacy, but now we have a growing interest in digital public goods. And with that, we design, implement, and experiment on digital public goods at the lab. What that image is showing is that we are trying to implement a hub and spoke model, which is centered around collaboration, starting from the lab in Rwanda and spreading out all over the continent. And now I'm on a different continent, so it's working. Initially, we were interested in digital identity, digital payments, human-computer interactions, and capacity building, but since then we have broadened our scope to look at multiple verticals in different industries. So when it comes to interoperability, our interest is stemming from the fact that the Digital Public Goods Alliance recognizes 130 DPGs as of this year. But when none of these come with inherent interoperability guarantees, right? So the question is, if I have a set of interoperability guidelines, does this inherently with the integrators allow for speedy deployment? Does it save cost and save cost and time? And also allow for integrators to not have to duplicate efforts. If a DPG is doing one thing, let it do that and do it well. So how would one go about designing such an interoperability framework? If we knew, I think I wouldn't be here right now, wouldn't have a job. So this is a process that we're going through, and first thing is we need to find a problem that is relevant to the our developing community. Once we know what the problem is, then we find the existing digital public good that can solve this problem. Then the next thing is with these digital public goods, we integrate them, and there are several existing interoperability approaches that have been published and standardized, as some of the previous speakers have spoken about. So we test these approaches against the integrations, and from that we come up with our insights, and the last step is to engage the community and engage and consult the DPG community. So this is where we currently are, and it's initiatives like this that are going to help a lot in that process, and it's an iterative process, so we shall keep refining with each iteration. So one of the problems I spoke about having a relevant problem in the community, the random Ministry of Health approached us with a challenge that they're facing. Right now they have deployed Digital Health Information System, another digital public good, and they're using this to power their COVID vaccination system. So as a patient, when I go to a health worker, I need to understand, the health worker needs to know, am I eligible to get first or second vaccination? But for this, as a patient, I'll have to either carry my physical card, or I'll have to remember my national ID number, or have a phone, and all of these things are easy to misuse, lose, or forget. So then we went about identifying, okay, so we're talking about an ID issue. Maybe some of you have heard about this DPG MOSIP, so it was the one that we identified. And we started to work on how can we integrate MOSIP to act as a foundational identification system for DHIS2. If you know DHIS2, you understand that it has a biometrics module, but it's not a digital ID system. So by integrating with MOSIP, having it as a single source of ID truth, the health worker can reliably and efficiently identify a patient and give better service provision. So this is a use case that's in the lab currently with our own deployment of MOSIP, and also a deployment of DHIS2, because the Rwanda doesn't currently have MOSIP deployed widely. Thank you. So out of our experience with integrating MOSIP, again, some of the standards have already been talked about, like OpenID Connect, and I think this looks similar to e-Signet, so great minds think alike. But what we were developing in parallel is a portable middleware that can encapsulate and sort of hide away all the nitty-gritties of identification so that the team working on DHIS2 can just easily integrate with minimal customizations to their system. So the middleware takes over, and it's a portable toolkit that can be installed on the DHIS2 infrastructure and can handle all the authentication steps and details that are required for MOSIP. Once you have multiple digital public goods interoperating, what you start to see is that with every integration, you have the cyber attack surface area increasing each time. So the next question is now, how can I keep up? How can my team, or as an integrator or government, keep up with understanding at least the baseline security posture of my deployment? So out of that came this DPG security toolkit, which is a compilation of very well-known open source security tools, and it's modular and it's also extensible. And once it's deployed in the infrastructure, then it can output at least can give you a base understanding of your security posture and how that changes over time. Thank you. Next slide. No. Yeah. Oh, sorry, the next one. So when it comes to interoperability, we all understand that there's no panacea. We can't have one way of doing interoperability, and it's through community engagement and that we shall be able to design and have a framework that can cut across as many verticals as possible. And that's why we continue to have this consultative and iterative process. So thank you, and if you'd like to talk to us, we'll be around. Thank you very much. That's it.
Thank you, Andrew. It was indeed a delight hearing you out. So while we are engaged in multiple research initiatives, we would like to talk about our alliance with the Oregon State University, an esteemed university in Oregon, USA. Together with OSU, we are working on the GenderMag project, which focuses on embedding gender inclusivity into the software. Digital solutions in hindsight might create a digital divide. However, with this initiative, we like to ensure that we eliminate these biases. And towards this, we are working with OSU to look at our solutioning and ensure gender inclusivity. To throw more light on this, let's hear it from Professor Anita Mishra, Associate Head of Research and Professor at Computer Science School of Electrical Engineering, Oregon State University. Can we play the video, please?
Hello, I'm Anita Sarma, and we researchers at Oregon State University are working with MOSIP to make the digital identity software gender inclusive. How can software be gender biased, you might be asking? Well, research on gender at CI has shown that individual differences in how people think and problem solve cluster by gender. And if the tools we develop only support one type of interaction or problem solving style, it disadvantages those whose styles are not supported. And it just so happens that more often than not, the problem solving styles of women are unsupported. And therefore, this inequity of supporting only one type of problem solving style also becomes gender biases. We are working with MOSIP to identify such inclusivity bugs in their software and resolve them to make the digital identity software gender inclusive. Thank you.
Institute, UK's National Institute for Data Science and Artificial Intelligence. Together, we are working on enabling access to people with feature phones, yet another way to improve inclusion. While we continue to work on inclusion, we also want solutions to be manageable by countries. To know more on this, I would like to call upon Santosh Narayanan, doctoral researcher from the Alan Turing Institute, to kindly come over and share his views on how systems can be secure and protected from frauds through Alan Turing's research on anomaly detection.
Thanks, Resham, for the introduction, and thanks a lot to MOSIP as well for inviting and having us here. Can we have the slides up? I have to say, I was really inspired by many of the talks today, especially the words from Professor Rajagopalan, and I hope it was. I use that inspiration to do some great work in the future. So yeah, as Resham just mentioned, the ATI is the National Institute for Data Science and AI. Of course, the goal is to do world-class research, but primarily the focus is on working on real-world problems, right? So that's the main goal. Can we move on, please? Next slide, please. So, the research programs in the institute cover a wide range of sectors. So basically, if you can think of almost any problem out there, I'm sure there's somebody at our institute who is working on it. Can we go to the next slide, please? So specifically, I'm here to talk about a project on trustworthy digital infrastructure for ID systems. So this is the project I'm working on, where many of the themes of the project probably covered in many of the previous talks. The goal is, of course, to have a user-centric design towards ID systems and be aware of the evolving risks and issues in the process, as well as advance the knowledge and techniques to progress the community. So I'm going to now take a couple of examples among the different threads we are working on in this project, hopefully to give you a flavor of the kind of things we do. Next slide, please. So one of the, so before that, as a process within this project, what we do is that we have a team of researchers like myself. We work on developing new methods and techniques through research, and our goal is then to take these knowledge from research into developments that can be deployed in systems such as MOSIP. And of course, once they are implemented, we can learn and learn from those experiences to further our research work. So now moving on to a couple of examples. Can we go to the next slide, please? Okay, so one of the interesting threads of this project is the development of a trustworthy framework. So this is a tool that can be used to assess any ID system. So the team have identified that there are 6 facets within each ID system. As you can see, ethics, privacy, resilience, reliability, robustness, and security. So I'm not going to go into the details of all of these facets, but the idea is to clearly define these facets, break them down further into measurable features and attributes, so that we can use this as a tool to understand the trustworthiness of an ID system. And of course, this is going to be released as an open source tool as well, so that anybody can test it on their implementation of an ID platform to measure their trustworthiness. Next slide, please. So now this is one of the projects that I personally worked on, which I think Resham set me up for during this talk. So this is focused on an explainable anomaly detection methodology. So how this can be used is, for example, in MOSIP we have the authentication module, so which is kind of the the bread and butter use of any ID platform. You have the stream of authentication requests coming in, and you want to, let's say you want to have that ability to detect whether this is a fraudulent authentication request. So in addition to providing a probabilistic decision on whether this authentication request is fraudulent or not, the methods that we have developed also provide explainability on top of these predictions that you can get. So here is an example on applying our methodology on a data set of financial transactions, which you can say has a lot of commonality with data from ID systems. So here is an example where this is one single observation, and the variables that have a large magnitude in highlighted in red basically contributed the most to that observation being predicted as fraudulent or anomalous. So what are the benefits? Obviously, they are beneficial because these explanations are model independent. So irrespective of whatever model somebody might have, we can just use this to provide explanations on top of the existing methods. But beyond that, explainability has a lot of benefits, whether it is in terms of building trust on the systems when they are denied service, for example. There may be a right to explanation as an ethical requirement, and so on. So we are extremely interested in taking works like these and getting it implemented within MOSIP and OpenG2P and so on, and that's really what we are trying to do here. Thank you so much. I don't have anything more to say, but there's one more slide just showing the contributing innovators and universities collaborating with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Santosh. We totally agree that while growing with technology and its demands is important, it is equally important to ensure privacy, security, and trustworthiness. On that front, we would like to draw your attention to one of our other initiatives with a renowned research university, IIIT-B, as we know it as. The research is focused on working towards an optimized and viable solution for privacy-preserving ID verification, which is built using homomorphic encryption. In simple words, it doesn't enforce decryption for authentication, which helps us to move towards zero trust infrastructure. Sounds interesting, doesn't it? To know more about it, let's hear it from our respected professor, Dr. Vivek Srinivas, Assistant Professor, IIIT-Bangalore. Can we have the video, please?
Hello, my name is Srinivas Vivek. I'm from IIIT-Bangalore. I'll be briefly speaking about the work my team has done on privacy-preserving identity verification as part of the MOSIP project. It is advantageous to use third-party cloud services to outsource citizens' data, biometric and demographic, but this comes with the increased privacy risks. So we present a privacy-preserving digital identity verification system that minimizes the role of a central trusted server and allows use of cloud services on subscription-based model. We use homomorphic encryption to achieve privacy by encrypting citizens' demographic and biometric data. Though the homomorphic encryption schemes are currently inefficient in general, we still show how it's possible to use them to achieve efficient demographic and biometric match on encrypted data in less than 0.3 seconds with acceptable overhead on storage. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Vivek, for the insightful overview. So, while the previous year has been quite exciting, and all that we witnessed today has been a result of the team's relentless efforts over the last year, let's now take a look at what lies ahead for us in this year. I would like to request Shashi Kumar Ganeshan, Head of Engineering at MOSIP, to kindly come over and present the roadmap for the year.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I think it has been a 4 years of exciting journey of building identity system. We have had a lot of hard topics, hard technology challenges that we have solved over time. And whatever we have achieved, I think is put in action now, and we are able to issue approximately 80 million identities across the globe, and we hope we will grow from here. One of the important factors as we start working with the countries and the communities across the globe that we realize is identity is at core of quite a lot of interesting use cases. Quite often we don't realize that when we build solutions, but like the work that Andrew did and others, if you look at it, identity is one of the biggest crises which stops us from actually doing a good governance in a lot of the countries. And identity is as robust an identity system that we could create, as wide open and as open enough in terms of standards, in terms of making sure everybody is usable, which is fundamentally an usable identity is a very, very important fact. And we in MOSIP, when we decide whether it's a new technology, whether it's a new research that we work on, how do you go about deciding where do you put your effort, where do you put your team and their hard work in place? It's going to be a very, very tough choice to decide out of all the exciting work that you have, how do you do it, right? This is one formula that you would see here out open. In most of our work, whether it was Sanjay Jain's presentation that you look at or Ramesh descriptions that you look at, we bring in user to the center of the stage. The user's privacy, the user's security, and how do you expect the user to use the system. Let's take an example of variety of the users that you would look at. A user could be without a mobile phone. A user could have an extremely good internet connection, but no mobile phone or no other means of communication. You could also have people who do not understand literal informations. You could also have people who are extremely smart and have a smartphone with them with internet connectivity and knows how to use digital systems. So you're going to have this wide variety of user base when we speak about national identities. And how are we going to face and meet all these needs and the demands? On one side, you have a young kid with extreme good knowledge about technology and how to use it. Other side, you're going to have people who don't understand technology, who are literally asking for a certain simple benefit to be delivered to them to make sure their life moves on and they could potentially scale up from where they stand. Right? So you have this wide diversity that we are trying to address here, and that brings in quite unique challenges, and that's where our user centricity becomes the vital role. Every time we bring in a roadmap or a discussion into the technology committee meetings or any of our open meetings, one of the questions being asked is how do we actually change people's life? If there is a way in which a simple change that we can make in our system, wherein we can adopt more users, more people can actually use our system effectively, then we think that solution or that work is an important priority. Anywhere we see a standard which could actually bridge the gap of governments integrating faster and faster service delivery, that essentially means that's a gap that we think we should address. And that's how our roadmaps usually gets designed, about user centricity, and manageability, modularity. Right. These are important factors that we think will change the way we operate as ID. Right. And while this is an open source MOSIP day, quite often in countries we think MOSIP would always take a back seat, which essentially means ID is not put in the front, ID is put at the back. People use it, forget it, get the service delivered, and move on. They do not realize there is an identity system, there is a heavy lifting that has been done, and that essentially means we have done a good job. If people feel it's a complex thing to use, for example, I keep telling people about my father's use case. He has this interesting habit of taking his debit card and keeping it in a locker, and he believes that's the safest way to keep it. And if you could keep your identity in a locker and you can never use it properly, I think we fail in our mission. And that is why it is important for us to keep looking at what holds our future and keep looking at what technology can offer to us. And what you see here is an interesting set of use cases around verifiable credentials. We introduced verifiable credentials in 1.2 version of MOSIP. And quite a lot of use cases or quite a lot of plugins that Sanjay spoke about, we're building above them. So 1.2 is going to be our base, and that's how we are going to keep it. And above 1.2, we will definitely release our patches and other stuffs, but there's going to be quite a lot of pluggable modules from MOSIP where you can decide and choose to use them or not to use them based on how you think it will be useful for you as a country, right? So OpenID and verifiable credentials, we think is a very, very important contribution, and we are enabled to work down that path this year and make that happen. We are already in progress. You would have already heard from Rounak about the e-Signet, which means we are now full and fledged ready with OpenID and OAuth 2.0. We are now looking at extending that into getting a full-fledged VC solution, which means your verifiable credentials can be issued, managed in a most standardized way. You look at our work on INGI. I think soon Rocky would provide us a good update about our INGI and our progress, but the idea is how do we take these verifiable credentials and use it on our phone? Okay. In terms of the work that we do, there is also quite a lot of interest in the community that comes across, and there are a lot of community members who reach out to us about various projects that they envisage which could help their country. And one such thing that you would notice here is an Android registration client. We think that's a game changer in quite a lot of countries where instead of expecting people to come and stand in the queue to issue ID, we could actually change the game to tell people could go door to door, the government officers could go door to door and deliver ID. You would see a combination of Android Reg client and a proposal of instant ID being available in our schedule. That essentially means you could register then in the same place, issue an identity at the same place and walk out. This solves the problem where people do not have the right home address, postal delivery systems do not exist, and those kind of needs actually gets addressed in these solutions. So the community also brings us back quite a lot of knowledge that they gain, experience, and build systems along with us. So whatever you see here is what we aggressively try towards. And there are a lot of community-driven projects which are outside of our scope, which continues to be delivered. In terms of compliance, we think our partners are the most important factors to be successful. If we have more partners who can actually reach to multiple countries and deploy solutions and actually make it work, then we think it is an essential part. And in order to make their life simpler in compliance, we launched this compliance toolkit. We had a small talk about that recently, but there is a lot of enhancement that we are doing there to make the compliance as robust as possible, as easy as possible for anybody to do it across the globe in any place and use this devices, whether it is software, whether it is compliant to using one of our API, we want to deliver it. And second, verification plays a very, very vital role in MOSIP's usage. While identity issuance is a once single time problem, which means you would issue it once and use it for a lifetime, using it for a lifetime is a very, very difficult problem. Technology changes, you need to have very interoperable solutions. So we started with providing an API-based approach. The API-based approach had its own merits and demerits. We said one solution would not fit all. When we started meeting the countries and have a lot of discussions, we also realized it may be wiser for us to increase that landscape into multiple ways. And that's the new roadmap that you would see here. We have quite a lot of interesting use cases coming up with OpenID Connect, with verifiable credentials, with an offline authentication. There's an interesting QR code standardization that we released last year for Philippines. Approximately 25 million people are using those interesting QR codes. It can provide offline authentication with no digital solution altogether. And with our Bluetooth module, which is the OpenID standard that Kristina spoke about, that we are working very closely with the OpenID Foundation. We are envisaging this will be a game changer for any smartphone-based offline verification. So if you're in a place where internet connectivity is troublesome, or you are in a place where servers are not reachable, or you have to deliver a service on the field, on the ground, then those are solutions which can actually enable it. And as I said, we don't think one solution would fit all the needs. We think there is a need for multiple delivery systems, and MOSIP as a system has to be hidden behind the scene and make sure we work as a a rail to deliver everything that is necessary. As long as people don't realize that we work in the back end, we are really doing a good job. And this roadmap is all about making that happen. I'm glad that we have a large team of community and our engineers working extremely hard to make it happen for the last 2 years. I'm really proud of the team that has actually delivered what we did today. And thank you, team, and thanks for all the work. I'll invite now Rocky to give a quick update about our NG progress. I think we launched NG in ID4D. We will have a quick progress update of that.
Thank you, Sasi. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody. One question that our team gets asked quite often is, what does NG mean? Well, it's definitely not what South Indians call ginger. No. NG in Korean language means knowing or recognizance. And for us, NG is a mobile wallet that can also be used to prove one's identity. So how does this happen? A user can download their digital credential on their mobile, just like this, by using an ID that is issued to them. And they can also share this with the relying party who's requesting for this ID by scanning a machine-readable code, like a QR code. So as part of Alpha, we built this ability to download credential and also ability to share. And in Alpha, we use this Google Nearby protocol to implement this feature. And Alpha came out in April last year. Okay, so then we move on to beta. And in Alpha, we only built the Android version of the app. So what did we do in beta? We took this app, extended it to iOS, and the sharing mechanism, we built it using the BLE protocol. And we also built an important feature called the face authentication. You might be familiar with this, right? So if I'm a user, and if I want to share my credential with somebody, I can verify my presence by using this feature. And if you are a relying party, you can use this component by requesting for this authentication on the spot. And we are talking about offline sharing, everything offline till now. And yeah, we also Rounak spoke about e-Signet integration, where user can access digital services just by using their phone. So nothing like complicated usernames or passwords, nothing like that. Just your phone, your credential on your phone, and yourself. And that's all that is required to unlock any service that is required. So that was beta. And so what's next? I think a lot of you already covered this, right? Standards are very, very important. And we'll be focusing in our GA, we will be focusing on integrating with the OWF architecture and adopting their standard. And yeah, the OpenID standard issuance also, which even e-Signet is going to integrate. We are going to be integrating with e-Signet also. So I think a lot of this might be like a repetition. And on the inclusion front, we do want to, we spoke about smartphones, right? I think, and Nat spoke about equity. So what about others, right? There are people with feature phones. There are people with no phones. So we are taking a step there, baby steps. So we will want to roll out some of these features using the USSD support channel. And there are a lot of other research projects happening which will address this population with features phones and no phones. But yeah, it's a slow start, but we will get there eventually. So summing up, great things are happening, great beginning, great things are happening. Coming back to the original question, so what does NG mean now? What is the meaning of NG? Well, I would say, I think, like Professor said, NG is a possibility of a lot of other things which is to come. So with that, I will give the stage to Resham. Thank you.
Thank you, Shashi and Rakhi. It certainly does look like an exciting and action-packed year ahead. So that brings us to the end of the event. On behalf of MOSIP, I would like to take this opportunity to thank everyone who has been directly or indirectly involved in making this event a grand success. A special thanks to all our speakers for adorning this occasion and sharing their valuable thoughts. We would also like to thank our grant organizations, partners, contributors, community members, students and members at the university, our audience here, and those virtually connected. Without you, your support, and your contribution, this wouldn't have been possible. Finally, I would like to thank our team who has been working behind the scenes to execute this event and ensure it goes through seamlessly. So we hope to see you around as we continue to collaborate and develop MOSIP. And don't forget to watch out for our upcoming developer conference later this year in September. Thank you and have a great evening.